Hey there, Rob Van Wagoner coming to you again from the reading and writing sofa in my writing studio. If you've checked out any of my previous videos, you know that I'm the author of The Contortionists, a new novel released by Signature Books, story that surrounds the disappearance of a 5-year-old Ogden, Utah boy. I would like to read to you a chapter, or a section of a chapter anyway, from the novel that occurs about a third of the way in. It's told from the point of view of Karley, soon to be Karley Nordling, but at the moment she's unmarried, and is a flashback. So hold on, here we go. The Morsel. 5 years, 11 months ago. Funny how one thing became another, how the best luck could arrive so massively emblazoned with warnings. It wasn't as though Karley hadn't noticed the handsome young doctor who lived downstairs. Even her missionary companion, Beth Jorgensen, that naive, earnest, righteous girl, had articulated considerable enthusiasm for the morsel in 1A. Hans Nordling, the Morsel. The nickname delighted Karley, though mostly because Sister Jorgensen had chosen it. And Beth was right. It was not easy to marshal apathy for the charming Norwegian, though Karley worked hard at it, an effort that demanded an oversized concentration. Hans's friendly incursions would have been harmless had she not so anticipated them. I'm a ski bum for a few months, he apologized, an extended holiday to recover from my fellowship. If you were going to be a ski bum, if you had the money, Lillehammer was the place. The natives would complain the Winter Olympics had ruined the local bonhomie. Still, you couldn't contest the world-class skiing. If I were to speculate, Beth would opine, I'd say the Morsel is a man of independent means. Indeed. Hans Nordling's mother owned the apartment they lived in. The 20-unit building, Karley would eventually learn, was one of the woman's minor investment properties. A ski bum, perhaps, though Karley hadn't missed a certain aside Hans had made about the days he donated to a downtown clinic. Real life awaited him in Oslo, but first he'd catch up on all that skiing he'd missed studying medicine in the United States. Karley was not sure what this said about him. He liked to ski, he was civic-minded, socially conscious, but was he a playboy too? That she found herself constructing a Hans Nordling backstory annoyed her more than a little. He was definitely pleasant to look at, sweet too in an unassuming way. If she weren't a missionary, if he were Mormon. But of course, she was, and he wasn't. I'm replacing a doctor who's retiring in April, he later clarified. I had a window, so I took it. He shrugged, clearly embarrassed by his life of semi-leisure. I've been pretty busy these past years. Such exchanges had become frequent and personal, the three of them visiting in the hallway or at the entrance, on the sidewalk in front of their building. Beth had even broached religion, a subject Karley avoided with the neighbors. Agnostic, he confessed, but I'd be happy to hear your message sometime. Maybe I could cook you dinner. Whoa. Beth's fervor was no less than Karley's and probably as ill-advised. This Hans was crafty. It was nigh impossible for a Mormon missionary to refuse an invitation to preach. Maybe so, Karley hedged, sometime. She felt righteous in this feat of self-discipline. She might have farted the way Beth glared at her. Hans opened his apartment door wearing shorts and a sweatshirt, his face windburned from days on the slopes. He clutched the beer by the neck, though it was his legs, Karley noticed, strong legs, lightly downed, well-defined from skiing. She blinked up at his face. Horrified, she looked, and he took a half step toward her. Is everything okay? Where's your friend? I'm very sorry to bother you, Karley said, but she's sick, and I'm quite worried. I'm hoping you'll look at her. if it's not too much trouble. We don't know any other doctors. Hans stood his beer on a small table in the entry, depositing his languid bearing with it. It was a subtle transformation, the opposite of self-conscious, and it made him seem wholly new to her. Her radar pinged without sounding his desire. The resistance was gone, and Karley, unbalanced, pitched headfirst off her battlement. To knock her down, he'd merely stepped aside, revealing the man behind the boy. Few things in Karley's experience were sexier than competence. Describe her sickness. Karley struggled to focus. Fever. She's a little feverish. She's been coughing for days, close to 3 weeks, but it's turned into something else. It's a deep cough now, croupy. She hasn't been out of bed for 2 days. She aches like the flu, but I think it's something worse. She seems to be getting weaker. Hans nodded. Let me throw some clothes on, and I'll be right up. Will you wait inside? No. Karley shook her head, but thank you. She'd landed hard and was scared now. Strange, she'd later think, how the fright in falling so often arrived after you were already down. I shouldn't be away from Beth too long. Give me 5 minutes. Sure, 5 minutes. But she didn't move, and neither did he. They gazed at each other, the neutrality of their expressions, insufficient bulwark against this unexpected privacy. His features softened, and she felt a deep stirring. The gametes had unified in the open chamber, the zygote rich with flourishing DNA. I'm glad you asked, he said. Such an effort to turn away. Pausing, she peered at him over her shoulder. Me too, thank you. Upstairs again, she checked on Beth. Hans will be up in a few minutes. Nuts, Beth moaned. Pooh, get me my hairbrush. Oh, stop it, Karley said. He's a doctor, for heaven's sakes. But she retrieved Beth's brush all the same. She hoped Hans took longer than 5 minutes. She needed a moment to marshal her defenses. She needed to brush her own hair. Thanks for stopping by.